in one incarnation. The Bodhisattva was a hermit who lived in a secluded forest of the Himalayas, and no one knew of his existence until one day a meritorious being descended from the heavens into a lotus flower in a pond near where the Bodhisattva sat in deep meditation. While other lotuses came, withered, and died, this one lotus remained flawless. Naturally, this pristine beauty before him caught his eye, and he walked up to inspect the flower. He saw an infant lying inside the lotus. The ascetic named her
Shanka,
and he would come to raise her as his daughter. Ka grew up to become one of the most ravishing women on the planet. Now, because they lived in such a secluded region, only Indra, king of the exalted ones, or devas, discovered their whereabouts. When Ka reached age Shirlil, Indra visited the Bodhisattva's abode and offered the princess luxurious clothes and jewelry, and he gifted her a crystal palace that floated in midair, like the lotus. One day, by a stroke of grace, a forester working for the king in a neighboring state spotted
Shanka,
and so he went back and told his king what he had seen. Such divine beauty. I was speechless. This aroused the king's curiosity, and he immediately set out with his legion and a large entourage of kinsmen to find the princess. They eventually found the hermit, and the king asked the father for the adoptive girl's hand in marriage. The Bodhisattva agreed on condition that the king guess her name, and that they remain there until he guessed correctly. The king was definitely up for the challenge, and naturally agreed to stay, and they set up camp. And since he was king, he got all his best advisors to run through a list of proper names for him, believing that, heads together, his intelligent subjects would surely be able to find the correct name in no time. But no one could guess correctly. In fact, many moons passed and they were still busy guessing, and by now, many of the king's subjects were suffering great hardship living in that neck of the woods. Some lost their lives from snake bites, termite infestations, and from drastic temperature changes. Others were attacked by lions and other apex predators, so that now the king's men were pleading to return to the fort and citadel. As the exhausted camp readied to leave,
Shanka
stood behind the protective field of the crystal palace floating above their heads and called out to the king, saying, I assure you, never in the whole kingdom will you find a woman as chaste as I. In heaven, the gods will have waited 1,000 years before they get to drink the nectar of the devas, which keeps them in a state of bliss for 4 moons. Now spellbound by both her eloquence and exquisite beauty, the king ordered his subjects to stay put and continue to compile their already extensive list of names until they found hers. Another full year passed, and still no one could come up with her given name, and so the king was set on leaving. But again,
Shanka
appeared at the edge of her palace, telling him another anecdote, this time of a crane who chanced to land atop Mount Giriraj. Desiring to remain there for a long cycle, the crane's wish was granted by Indra. He diverted a river up to the hilltop so that the crane may feed from it. Just as the crane's wish was fulfilled, she assured the king, so too can yours. So, guess what? The king stayed for a 3rd year, compiling an extensive manuscript of all imaginable names. They even conjured new names, new languages, and scripts, presenting these to the Bodhisattva. And wouldn't you know it, it was all of no avail. It is not a Buddha's job to reveal what is already in men's minds. Thoroughly frustrated, the king and his crew of astronomers, skilled militia, carpenters, were now beginning to doubt this hermit, who they had taken for the savior, was telling them the truth. And so, they started packing up camp to head south, for home, adamant that no one could reveal her name. Just then,
Shanka
appeared some ways above the tree line in her protective bubble moving alongside them. But since the king doubted he would ever come to know her, he didn't even look up, but instead pronounced a farewell. Oh, most boutious fair one. Despite your soothing voice filled with the promise that I might come to know you, I doubt that I could ever find a way to win your heart, let alone your hand in marriage. And my men have suffered dearly, and he concluded, though I doubt I shall ever find as worthy a woman as a
Shanka
interjected, except that you have just uttered my name. Twice, without your realizing it. The king scrambled to interpret her cryptic response, and just like that, in an effortless cry, he pronounced the magic word. And with that, the crystal palace gate opened, and a Ka floated down, dressed a queenly bride's gown. And, in an instant, they were wedded before the witnesses in the heavens. It turns out that the same king, in an earlier lifetime, had left his wife to become one of the Buddha's novices. But because he was a neophyte, he yearned for the wonderful meals his wife used to make for him. He loathed the lumpy gruel, putrid ingredients, and either dried or burnt sprouts of the forest, for he was not getting enough nutrients to stay healthy. Upon his return, his wife fed him delicious rice and curry. And because her cooking was divine, he never returned to the assembly of ascetics, known as the Sangha. The Buddha would later tell his disciples this anecdote of the queen's skills and spells that caused even a king 3 years of misery, making many of his people suffer and even lose their lives in the search of her. On hearing that anecdote from the Buddha, his devotees gained faith, insight, and renewed confidence to stay by the Buddha's side. At the feet of refuge of the monastic tradition.